Episode 45. Judge Taylor stirred. He turned slowly in his swivel chair and looked benignly at the witness. "Are you the father of Mayella Yule?" he asked in a way that made the laughter below us stop suddenly.
"Yes, sir,"
Mr. Yule said meekly. Judge Taylor went on in tones of goodwill. "This is the first time you've ever been in court. I don't recall ever seeing you here." At the witness's affirmative nod, he continued, "Well, let's get something straight. There will be no more audibly obscene speculations on any subject from anybody in this courtroom as long as I'm sitting here. Do you understand?" Mr. Yule nodded, but I don't think he did. Judge Taylor sighed and said, "All right, Mr. Gilmer."
"Thank you, sir. Mr. Yule, would you tell us in your own words what happened on the evening of November 21st, please?"
Jem grinned and pushed his hair back. "Just in your own words" was Mr. Gilmer's trademark. We often wondered who else's words Mr. Gilmer was afraid his witnesses might employ.
"Well, the night of November 21, I was coming in from the woods with a load of kindling, and just as I got to the fence, I heard Mayella screaming like a stuck hog inside the house."
Here Judge Taylor glanced sharply at the witness, and must have decided his speculations devoid of evil intent, for he subsided sleepily.
"What time was it, Mr. Yule?"
"Just 'fore sundown." "Well, I was saying, Mayella was screaming fit to beat Jesus."
Another glance from the bench silenced Mr. Yule.
"Yes, she was screaming,"
said Mr. Gilmer. Mr. Yule looked confusedly at the judge.
"Well, Mayella was raising this holy racket, so I dropped my load and run as fast as I could, but I run into the fence. But when I got disentangled, I run up to the window and I seen—"
Mr. Yule's face grew scarlet. He stood up and pointed his finger at Tom Robinson.
"I seen that black nigger yonder rutting on my Mayella."
So serene was Judge Taylor's court that he had few occasions to use his gavel. But on this occasion he hammered fully 5 minutes. Atticus was on his feet at the bench, saying something to him. Mr. Hectate, as first officer of the county, stood in the middle aisle, quelling the packed courtroom. Behind us there was an angry, muffled groan from the colored people. Reverend Sykes leaned across Dill and me, pulling at Jem's elbow.
"Mr. Jem," he said, "you better take Miss Jean Louise home. Mr. Jem, you hear me?"
Jem turned his head.
"Scout, go home. Dill, you and Scout go home."
"You gotta make me first," I said, remembering Atticus's blessed dictum. Jem scowled furiously at me, then said to Reverend Sykes,
"I think it's okay, Reverend. She doesn't understand it."
I was mortally offended. "I most certainly do. I can understand anything you can."
"Ah, hush. She doesn't understand it, Reverend. She ain't 9 yet."
Reverend Sykes's dark eyes were anxious.
"Mr. Finch know you all here? This ain't fit for Miss Jean Louise or you boys either."
Jem shook his head.
"He can't see us this far away. It's all right, Reverend."
I knew Jem would win, because I knew nothing could make him leave now. Dill and I were safe for a while. Atticus could see us from where he was, if he looked. As Judge Taylor banged his gavel, Mr. Yule was sitting smugly in the witness chair, surveying his handiwork. With one phrase, he had turned happy picnickers into a sulky, tense, murmuring crowd, being slowly hypnotized by gavel taps, lessening in intensity until the only sound in the courtroom was a dim... The judge might have been rapping on the bench with a pencil. In possession of the court once more, Judge Taylor leaned back in his chair. He looked suddenly weary. His age was showing. And I thought about what Atticus had said. He and Mrs. Taylor didn't kiss much. He must have been nearly 70.
"There has been a request," Judge Taylor said, "that this courtroom be cleared of spectators, or at least of women and children. A request that will be denied for the time being. People generally see what they look for and hear what they listen for, and they have the right to subject their children to it. But I can assure you of one thing. You will receive what you see and hear in silence, or you will leave this courtroom. But you won't leave it till the whole boiling lot of you come before me on contempt charges. Mr. Ewell, you will keep your testimony within the confines of Christian English usage, if that is possible. Proceed, Mr. Gilmer."
Mr. Ewell reminded me of a deaf mute. I was sure he had never heard the words Judge Taylor directed at him. His mouth struggled silently with them, but their import registered on his face. Smugness faded from him, replaced by a dogged earnestness that fooled Judge Taylor not at all. As long as Mr. Ewell was on the stand, the judge kept his eyes on him, as if daring him to make a false move. Mr. Gilmer and Atticus exchanged glances. Atticus was sitting down again. His fist rested on his cheek, and we could not see his face. Mr. Gilmer looked rather desperate. A question from Judge Taylor made him relax.
"Mr. Ewell, did you see the defendant having sexual intercourse with your daughter?"
Yes, I did.
The spectators were quiet, but the defendant said something. Atticus whispered to him, and Tom Robinson was silent.
"You say you were at the window?" asked Mr. Gilmer.
Yes, sir.
"How far is it from the ground?"
About 3 foot.
"Did you have a clear view of the room?"
Yes, sir.
"How did the room look?"
Well, it was all slung about like there was a fight.
"What did you do when you saw the defendant?"
Well, I run round the house to get in, but he run out the front door just ahead of me. I sawed who he was all right. I was too distracted about Mayella to run after him. I run in the house, and she was lying on the floor squalling.
"Then what did you do?"
Why, I run for Tate quick as I could. I knowed who he was all right, lived down yonder in that nigger nest, past the house every day. Judge, I've asked this county for 15 years to clean out that nest down yonder. They're dangerous to live around, sides devaluing my property."
"Thank you, Mr. Ewell," said Mr. Gilmer hurriedly.
The witness made a hasty descent from the stand and ran smack into Atticus, who had risen to question him. Judge Taylor permitted the court to laugh. "Just a minute, sir," said Atticus genially. "Could I ask you a question or two?" Mr. Ewell backed up into the witness chair, settled himself, and regarded Atticus with haughty suspicion, an expression common to Macomb County witnesses when confronted by opposing counsel. "Mr. Ewell," Atticus began, "folks were doing a lot of running that night. Let's see. You say you ran to the house. You ran to the window. You ran inside. You ran to Mayella. You ran for Mr. Tate. Did you, during all this running, run for a doctor?"
Wasn't no need to. I seen what happened.
"But there's one thing I don't understand," said Atticus. "Weren't you concerned with Mayella's condition?"
I most positively was, said Mr. Ewell. I seen who done it.
"No, I mean her physical condition. Did you not think the nature of her injuries warranted immediate medical attention?"
What?
"Didn't you think she should have a doctor immediately?" The witness said he never thought of it. He had never called a doctor to any of his'n in his life, and if he had, it would have cost him $5.